Nu Maimer, Shabbos Parshas Chayesarim, Avorch Machodesh Kislev, Chav Zayin Marcheshvan Tovshin Mem Zayin. So here, the Rebbe is going to bring very well-known Maimer Chazal that we find about the story of Eliezer in the Torah, that when it relates the whole entire story about how Eliezer found Rivka, so first it tells the story about how he found her, and how he had a conversation with Hashem about the one who will offer me to drink and my camels to drink, etc. And it tells the whole events. And then afterwards, when Eliezer is invited to Lavan and Psul's house, so the Torah doesn't just say, and Eliezer told him what happened, but the Torah goes through the entire story all over again. Now we know that throughout the Torah, when it comes to dinim in the Torah and so on, the Torah is very, very minimal in its verbiage. It doesn't tell you about the 39 malachas of Shabbos. It says, don't do malacha. And then from that, you got to go ahead and try to figure out there's 39 malachas when it comes to the Mishkan, and from that we learn out the malachas of Shabbos, or when it talks about putting on tefillin. It doesn't tell you anything about what tefillin look like. It doesn't tell you anything how tefillin is supposed to be made, etc., etc. So when it comes to mitzvahs, when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, it's very, very limited. But here, a whole story, the Torah goes not just through the story in detail, but it goes through the repetition of the story. So from this, the Chazal learn out. Rabacha said, it is more beautiful, the sicha, the talk, the stories of the servants of the forefathers, because this didn't even happen with Avraham or Yitzchak. It happened with Eliezer. Than the Torah of the children. Later on, the Torah, when we have all the different halachas, like we said, it doesn't go into all these things. The parsha of Eliezer is repeated in Torah. First when it occurred, and then when he told it over. And many of the bodies of the Torah, meaning halacha, is called like the body of the Torah, the meat and potatoes of the Torah is the halachas. They were only given but a hint. It's not even explained what and when and so on. It hints at a certain halach. It's known the exact examination of this in the Mamorim of Arabim, and the skip the parentheses. Why, for what reason, is this talk of the servants of the Avis better than the Torah of the children? In other places that Rebbe speaks about, all we know is that it is that way. But the Chacham don't explain why it is that way. They only bring a proof from this case that it is that way. And the Rebbe adds to this in the parentheses, especially over here, what's emphasized is, on the one hand, it's not just anything of the avodim, but it's the sicha of the avodim, the talk of the avodim. On the other hand, it's Torah. So it's even putting aside that this is avdei avos and this is banim, it's about sicha versus Torah. The luchura of a pashtas Torah l'mayla b'sicha is seemingly in a simple, ordinary way of looking at it. Torah is beyond just talk. So how could it be that we find such a thing that there's more favor and more interest in the Torah given and more pages given in the Torah to the sicha of the servants than the Torah of the children? You can will show you some medrash and other individual specific examinations in the expressions that the medrash uses over there, servants and bonim, and many different questions the Mamorim ask about it. The Gamba in the medrash also, there's another in the medrash that they ask about. It says Yafer rechitzas ragleim, because it says that Eliezer was given to wash his feet, and all the people that accompanied Eliezer washed their feet when they entered Lavan's house. So it says over there also about it's more special, the washing of the feet of the servants, than what came later in the Torah. So the different Amarim analyze all the different details that the Medrash speaks about. So the Rebbe is not going to speak about all the analysis, but just a general idea. The point of the explanation this is the idea of the talk of the servants of the Avis. We're talking about the avoida of davening. Like the Chazal say, Ein sicha ala tefillah. What is the meaning? When the Torah uses the word sicha, it's going on davening. In other places, the Rebbe analyzes this from the very expression that it uses in this Maimer Chazal. Amar Rab Abba yafes sichasen shel avdei avos. Sichasen shel avdei avos. We don't find the Torah usually uses the word sicha. Usually we find the word that's used as dibur or amira, and even in this story it says that Eliezer said and spoke dibur and amira. Doesn't use the word sicha. Why specifically does Rab Acha, when he says this idea, say that the sicha of the Avdei Avos is greater? It's because it's trying to hint to what Chazal say, that the word sicha is going on tefillah. And we actually have in our own parasha the indication that sicha means tefillah. Parasha saying, like it actually says in our parasha, by Yetzi Yitzchak Lasuach Basada, it says that Yitzchak went out to be Mesiach in the Sada. Lasuach is from the same root as the word Sicha. Amar Razal, and the Chazal said about this, Ein Sicha ala Tefillah, that Sicha means Tefillah. So we find that the idea of Sicha is greater than Torah. What's the idea of Sicha is greater than Torah? Davening. So he's going to go down and drill down. What are we talking about over here about davening? The true idea of davening is what's called in the Zohar the will of the heart. And the will of the heart, that's referring to the innermost level of the heart. This idea that's referring to the innermost level of the heart is talking about specifically and especially the davening of the servants of the forefathers. Specifically, it says Avdei Avos, the Inyan Avidu, because the idea of the Avid is, skip the parentheses, Shubotel Legamri Adon, that a servant is completely nullified and sublimated to his master. V'chol Mitziyusai, he Mitziyus Ha'adam, his entire being is the being of the master. To such a degree is the servant's bittul to his master that in halacha it's brought down that when a servant acquires something, he doesn't keep it. He automatically, his hand is like an extension of the hand of the master. So when we talk about sicha of eved, we're talking about the davening. Davening is at the core essence of a complete bittul. What is the idea of the sicha of the servants of the fathers? What does that mean in Avodas Hashem? It is a davening from the very core and essence of the soul, Re'usa the liba, the will of the heart. It's like explained in many places in Chassidus. The yechid of the soul resides specifically in the heart, until that's the innermost part of the heart. The and the innermost part of the heart. Like it's explained in even though in general we speak about there's the inner part of the heart and there's the external part of the heart, and the external part of the heart, it's more susceptible to divisions and breaking down and levels. But the Alter Rebbe says that even in the inner part of the heart, there's levels upon levels. The Lefiza, according to the above, Inyan Rusa the Liba, Ein Ze Torah Shel Darga Mesiyamis Balev. The idea of the will of the heart, that's not a description of a specific particular level in the heart. The Reusa Hainu Rotzen Shebalev, that the will, that's the will of the heart. Because also will, when you use the description will, when you use the word will also can have in it many levels. As opposed to the idea of the will of the heart. It's going on the inner part of the heart. That's beyond even the entire definition and categories of levels at all. So all of this is included in the word sicha. So to sum it up, what the Rebbe is saying over here is, when it says Yafa Sichasan Shalavdi Avis, it's talking about the core essence of the heart being expressed in davening. That's what sicha is about. As opposed to the idea of Torah mitzvahs in general, which is we're saying Yafa Sichasan Shalavdi Avis, Yoiser Miterasan Shalbanim. It's better than Torah. So he's saying Torah mitzvahs in general is not internal, but it's external. What do I mean external? It's referring to the avodah of refining the sparks, engaging, in other words, with the world, and in the world there's embedded over there sparks, and through Torah and mitzvahs we are able to elevate the sparks that are concealed and hidden in the world to be able to make a home for the Eibusher down here below. So once we've identified what is sicha versus Torah, so now we can start explaining how the sicha of the Avdei Avis is greater than the Torah of the Bana. Last paragraph on the first page. Would this be understood? Why the talk, the sicha of the servants of the forefathers are greater than the Torah of the children? Because the Torah of the children is to make a home for the Eibusher down below, like we said before. The idea of a home, that itself falls under a descriptive term. A home is already a description. It has definition to it. In other words, it's already limited. It's already fits in a certain box. When we say making a home down here below, as soon as you use the word below, it indicates that there is an existence that's low. And it has many levels, because it doesn't say Lasli Yisbarach Dira Batachtoin in the singular, but Tachtoin im Lashon Rabim. It uses the bottom ones in the plural. This indicates not only are there many levels in the bottom, but there's also those that are above in the bottom. Because you have bottom, that must mean that there's something on top. And once you start speaking about Yoinim, the truth is V'gambal Yoinim Eshkam Dargis Al Yoinim Lashon Rabim. Also in the above, there's also, doesn't say El Yoin, but El Yoinim. There's plural. There's many levels of El Yoinim. So when you're dealing with Tairasam Shalbanim, you're dealing with a Dira B'tachtoinim that's already defined, and that's already dealing with levels, and that's already divisions. In other words, limitations. Masha Enkin is Inyan Sichasam Shal Avdei Aves, as opposed to the idea of the talk, the davening of the servants of the forefathers. Koi al Bechinas Ru'usa Dolibam. It's referring to the will of the heart, that's from the level of the Yechida of the soul, like we said before. When we are tapping into the level of the Sicha of the Eved, we said that's the total bittul, and that's from the total essence of the heart. So the sicha of the Avdei Avis, that taps into being that it's beyond definition and beyond categorization, like we said before. It's the pnimius that's higher than any type of pnimius. Therefore, it reaches and touches the essence of Hashem that's also beyond any definition and level. Like the statement is, no thought can grasp the Eibusher, because grasping indicates that you are already like limiting. Anything that's grasped has to have a certain type of limitation to it. The only thing that can connect to the Eibishter's essence is with the will of the heart. So that is why Sichasim Shalavdi Avis is better than Torah. Torah is dealing with the practical, with the physical, with Dira, with things are limited and defined and Tachtoin, etc. Whereas Sicha of the Avdei, that is dealing with Hashem's very essence. So he says in the second paragraph, the second page, with this will also be understood explanation of the expression that the Sicha is beautiful. It doesn't say Toiv Yoiser or Lamaila or other expressions that would indicate that the talk of Eliezer is greater than the Torah that we will have later, the Torah mitzvahs. It uses the word Yafeh from the word beauty. It is more beautiful, the Sicha of the Avdei Avos. Beauty expresses the same idea as well. The fact that he uses over here the expression beauty and not greatness, etc. He could have said, Gadol sichasen shel avdei avos miterasen shel banim. It is greater. Why do we use the word yoifi? Mishum she'inyan agadlos moira al inyan sheyesh by ezet tfisa v'geder. As soon as he used the word godless, greatness, that already indicates something that has a description to it. It's graspable, it's definable. It's great either quantitatively, or it's great qualitatively. As opposed to the idea of beauty, though there are many levels in beauty, there's something that's called beautiful in build and beautiful in face. Or similar to what it says in Shirashirim, you are entirely beautiful, my beloved. Was that there's no blemish or no defect in you. So even though the word yafa could also indicate beauty, can also indicate things that are defined and have limits and divisions and so on. The intention over here is the idea of beauty that's beyond any type of definition, any type of description. That's why the only word you could use over here, since it's so beyond everything, is beauty. Because beauty is something that's not really, one can't really describe beauty. You say one thing is bigger than something else. You say this person is smarter than someone else, this person is stronger. That is something that lends itself to be described. He can pick up 100 pounds and he can pick up 200 pounds. He can understand something in 5 minutes and he can understand something in 1 minute. It's quantifiable. But when you're dealing with beauty, beauty transcends any type of definition. And that's why the intention, when he's saying yafa, he's using the word of beauty. It's a matter that's beyond measure and boundary. Like it says about Hashem, that Hashem's essence is not hinted in any letter and any even point. One of the thorns, the points on top of the letter, it's not even hinted in that, because Hashem is beyond description whatsoever. No name can describe him, no letter can describe him, not even the points on top of the letters can describe him. So that's the same idea of Yafa, because since when we're talking about the Sicha of Avdei Avos, we're talking about the davening that comes from the depth of a person's heart, and that's the person being completely sublimated on Evet Hashem from the Yechidah Shebenefesh. And that taps into the essence of Hashem that's beyond any type of description whatsoever. So the term that's used is beauty, yafa. because beauty is also something that indicates beyond quantification, beyond qualification, beyond description, because it's not something that can be limited, described, boxed in, etc. Third paragraph on the page. That's the reason why the talk of the servants of the Avos is repeated in the Torah. The story with Eliezer and Rivka. And many of the bodies of the Torah, the halachas of the Torah, were only hinted in the Torah, they're not even explicitly written. Since this talk of the servants of the fathers is a matter that's infinite, without boundaries, like we said before, therefore the way it manifests and expresses itself in the Torah is also in a way of being a lot, without the normal limitations that Torah usually places on things. As opposed to many halachos of the Torah, they came down in the categories of things that are measured and have a boundary and so on. Therefore, they were only given with a hint, that from one hint and one extra word in the Torah, one extra letter, we learn out different halachas. Because it's sufficient for the wise with a hint. The expression the Chazal say that a wise person, you don't have to explain him everything, you could hint to him. So the same thing, many halachas in the Torah, it's sufficient information for the wise. Since we do not need more than a hint, so therefore there is no need in having extra. Halacha says that anywhere that there is extra, so it has it's in certain situations it's considered as if it doesn't exist over there. For example, there's halachas of treifus, what makes an animal, any diseases that make an animal not kosher. If a person shechted an animal and found that a certain vital organ was missing, so then the animal is not kosher. What happens if they found double of that vital organ? So we say kol yeser kenotl dami. If it's extra, it's as if it's not even there, and it's still not kosher. So the main point that I'm just explaining that expression. It's not directly relevant to here. The main point is that if it's extra, it shouldn't be there. So therefore, since the rest of the halachas of the Torah, it's sufficient to understand with a hint, therefore they were only given over with a hint, and the Torah does not speak and tell you explicitly what you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, how you're supposed to make film, how you're supposed to write mezuzahs, etc., etc. The Chazal said, why does the Torah begin with word Bereishis? Bereishis is supposed to be divided. Beis Reishis. Two things are Reishis. Yidden are called Reishis first, and the Torah is called Reishis. And for those two things, the world was created. The Beis in Yonah Meilu, B'Shvil Yisrael, B'Shvil Torah, these two matters. For the sake of Yisrael, for the sake of the Torah, Hem Keneged, Beis, Dargas Eilu, these correspond to the two levels we just now spoke about, the Torah of the children versus the Sicha of the Avdei Avos. The Torah Ibeseder Ishtalshus. Torah is in the chain order of the worlds, and therefore it has limitations, and it comes down, and it's boxed in, and it's something that's defined, and so on. Mashenkin Yisrael, Kadm Torah, as opposed to, it says that even though both Yisrael and Torah preceded the world, but amongst those two, Yisrael preceded the Torah because Yisrael are higher than Seder Ishtalshus. This is actually the reason why in the word Bereishis is hinted both these ideas. The Inyan Bereishis, Bepashtus Koyal Brias Oilam Seder Ishtalshus, that the idea of Bereishis in the simple sense, it's talking about Bereishis Bar Elokim, it's talking about the creation of the world. which doesn't just mean our physical world, but it also includes the entire chain order of descent. V'yesh oid pirush, there's actually another pirush of Chassidus, of Bereshis, referring to higher than that. The koyal bechinas shalomaylam ishtalshalus, that's going on a level that's higher than ishtalshalus, kimevur, but Teres Chaim b'tchilos, let's explain the Teres Chaim of the Mittler Rebbe at the beginning of the Sefer, or Bekam Mekayim in many places, Shezov shebereshis pirushi bekadmin. Bereshis means early on, meaning, and Chassidus explains it, that's the Onkelos used the word to explain Bereshis means bekadmin, and means early on, meaning preceding, even before the worlds. Ad l'maylam is even higher than that. Bechinas ru'usa, the will, shalamaylam kol seder ishtalshus, is beyond the chain order of descent. So the word Bereshis itself refers to seder ishtalshus and higher than seder ishtalshus, and the Beis Reishis, for the sake of Yidna, for the sake of Torah, Yidna are higher than seder ishtalshus, Torah is seder ishtalshus, and this reflects as well Yafas Sichasan Shalabdi Yavis, out of this world, Hashem's essence, versus Torah, which has to do with Seder Ishtalshus, the world definition, and so on. Last paragraph on the second page. In addition to this idea that's in the Sicha, Masha Sicha, in not Philiberus Doliba, that Sicha is idea of davening with the will of the heart. It's known gam nikras b'shem Sicha. Sometimes also Torah is called Sicha. So how could it be? If we just now explain that there are two different extremes, how can they both be contained in the same word? We could say the explanation this is this idea of the Sicha. Are drawing down Hashem's very essence. That's beyond every type of category and description. One needs to take that supra, above and beyond everything, and bring it down into the person's Torah and into his mitzvahs, into making a home for the Eibusha down here below, even in the categories and limitations, the descriptions of this world, that which defies all limitations and categories. That's why Torah is also called Sicha, because you need a combination of both. Sicha going on the very essence, Sicha going on Torah, to show you have to take the essence and bring it down into Torah. We could say this is also what's explained in the continuation of the Mamorim that speak about this topic. It says, Dargas the Tevas Siach Hirosh Tevas Gimel Bnei Noach. The Siach is the root word of Sicha, and it's the Rosh Tevis of the three children of Noach, Shem, Cham, and Yafes. Shem, Cham, and Yafes correspond to Shem is the level of the right side, Cham is the level of heat, that has to do with Gvura, that's the left side, Yafes, beauty, that's like the fetters, that's the center line. That also corresponds, Shekeneged, Gimel HaMudim, this corresponds to the three pillars upon which the world stands on, the Torah, Avodah, Milchasadim of Torah, service of Hashem and doing acts of kindness. It says that the talk of the servants of the forefathers. Who are the forefathers? These are the three forefathers. Also the three forefathers are the root of the three pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gimel Chasadim. So in other words, it corresponds to this idea of taking from the highest level and manifesting itself into all the different avodas. We cannot just be out of this world. We have to take the out of the world experience of davening from the core of the heart that touches Hashem's very essence and draw it down into all those things upon which the world stands upon. Behind it, this means the klolos avodah. Lastly, is baruch dir b'tachtoin, in the general service of making for the Eibusha a home down here below. That's divided into the three pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gimel Chasadim. We have to do it in such a manner of the Sicha of the servants of the forefathers. Hainu b'chinas sicha dekoyal rusa deliba. The avodah that we're doing down here has to be permeated with the will of the heart, uba'oifen the evet, and the way of a servant. Avodah sa'eved, the service of a servant, shekol mitziyusay mitziyus ha'odin. That his entire being, like we mentioned before, of the servant is the being of the master. Uba'oifen the ovis, and also it's avdei ovis. Ovis also symbolizes the idea of bittul, the forefathers. Why? Ashara ovis heinena markovad. Alter Rebbe brings us down in Tanya from Kabbalah that the forefathers are from the Medrash, that the forefathers are called a chariot Hashem. What's the idea of a chariot, a vehicle? A vehicle has no will of its own. It only follows what the driver makes it to do. That's also the idea of a chariot, of a vehicle that's completely bottled to the one that rides upon it. The Rebbe concludes with the bracha, "V'yiratzon should be the will of Hashem." Throughout the avodah and all these matters throughout the 6,000 years of the world's existence, especially in the heels of Mashiach, when the feet meet up with the feet. In other words, the feet being the lowest generation meet up with the feet of Mashiach. Navi Lakim Kolanal will come to the fulfillment of all the above. Shigir Dir Lo Yizbarach Tatoinim, that Hashem shall have a home down here below. The true idea of a home is that the very essence resides in the home. That's the difference between when I'm at home or I'm a guest. At home, I'm there in my complete essence. I do not hold back. This is who I am. So the same thing, even though we said a dira, a home, and tachtoinim shows on limitation, but we want the level that's beyond everything, Hashem's essence, to come down and be here at home. Will be fulfilled the promise. It will be set up, the mountain of the house of Hashem at the top of the mountains. That all the nations will flow and pour into it. With all the other promises of future redemption. Especially that is already the promise that all of you are standing ready. All matters were already given from above. That we have this all prepared. All we have to do is make a vessel down here below. Should all stand ready. The true idea of the vessel is that he's completely nullified to the light that's in him, like it's explained in many places. Okay, like it's known the proof from this in Hilchas Shabbos about how a vessel is completely bottled. If someone carries on Shabbos, let's say from a private domain to a public domain, which is a yachid or sarabim, and he's carrying, let's say, a big pot, and in that pot is a piece of bread, but the piece of bread is not the shiur. So then he is not liable for carrying on Shabbos. He's not allowed to do it, but he doesn't have the obligation to bring a carbon in times of Beis Mikdash, etc. Even though he carried out this big pot. True, the bread didn't have a shiur that was in the pot. But what about the pot? Because the pot is sublimated and nullified to the food that's in it. So since the food didn't have a shiur, and the whole purpose of the pot, the keli, is there for the food, and if the food didn't have a shiur, so then the pot doesn't have a chiyuv when a person carries it out. So that's the idea, that we have to make the keli, and the keli is completely bottled to the light. If that's and the Rebbe says, if that's the way in the physical, that the keli is completely bottled to whatever is inside of the keli, how much more so that's in spiritual matters that are beyond measure and boundary. Especially through proceeding, through the prefacing of the service of spreading the wellsprings outward, that began on Yutas Kislev when the Alter Rebbe was released from prison. Through that we come to the matter of Chanukah. The Neres Chanukah, Neres Nitzchim, the candles of Chanukah are everlasting candles. These candles will never cease, like the Aron was promised. In the building of the third base of Migdash Adonai Kohen Yedacha, the Migdash of Hashem, your hands prepared. The Matam Asar Tvachim, below 10 handbreadths from here, remain mamish speedily in our days, mamash.